Pate has brought his dog in with him, the drug sniffing dog. He's going to give us some information about the dog and how it's used, its capacity. And you guys are going to pay attention and you're going to learn, right? Right? He's going to give you some information. You can have a question and answer afterward. And then he's going to allow you the opportunity to pet the dog one at a time. Okay? Because this dog is trained to do things, not to interact so much with people. But he's going to give you the opportunity to pet the dog also. Okay? So, after that, we'll, oh, look, here he is. Woo! Uh-oh. The deputy man, third. Your class.
Thank you, sir. Sita. Off black. Sita. Scouts, how are we tonight? Good. All right, my name's Deputy Pink. I'm from the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office, and my partner here is Canine Faust. Faust is a German Shepherd. He's 4 years old. Here, Faust was born in the Netherlands. So as we're talking today, you're going to hear me say some funny words. It's because he speaks Dutch. Here. Hold it. So sometimes I have to stop my presentation and kind of talk to Faust a little bit to make sure he does what we want. Here. Good boy. We're going to let him get settled in. Here. Sita. Faust is what they call a patrol canine. And that means Faust does two things for our sheriff's office. Faust uses his nose to detect drugs, illegal narcotics. He also uses his nose to smell people. And the reason why we smell people, is because sometimes bad guys run away. Sometimes good people get lost. A lot of times older people, children smaller than yourselves, maybe they get lost in the woods. The reason why we use the dogs is because if you look at his nose, it's much bigger than ours. Depends on what studies you read. Dogs smell anywhere between 250,000 times better to maybe about 500,000 times better. It's 500,000 times better than we do. So I'll ask you, if you were lost in the woods, would you want somebody that can smell super good to find you quickly? Or would you want all of us in this room to have to look through all of the wood to try to find you? Here. Good. So the reason why we use Faust is for that. We also use Faust because he's got an extra pair of legs. He's fast. You came to my sheriff's office and you look at the other sheriff's deputies, they all have a human partner. I don't have a human partner. I have a dog for my partner. So Faust is trained to protect me. Later on, towards the end of this, I'm going to give you the opportunity to pet Faust if you want to, but we got just two rules we need to follow. One, we got to do it one by one. There's many, many more of you than there is in Faust. And two, everybody sees the ball in his mouth. We don't want to play with the ball in his mouth because that's his most favorite toy. The reason is, when Faust does a good job, he gets that toy as his reward. When you do a good job in school, you get good grades. When I do a good job at work, I get a paycheck. All right? Faust, this is his paycheck. This is his good grades. But he's also trained to protect me, and that's why we do it one by one. Other sheriff's deputies protect each other. You see this button on my shoulder here? Because Faust doesn't have thumbs, right? Can't open doors and things like that. Good boy. Here. Here. I have to have a way to get Faust out of the vehicle. So when I hit this button, the door in my vehicle opens and Faust can come running to me. That's for my protection. If I'm on a traffic stop or I'm in an area where someone is trying to hurt me and I need Faust, I can bring him out. It also saves me from having to run all the way back to the sheriff's vehicle. Here. Hey. Oh, good boy. It saves me from having to run back there and open the door for him, right? Good boy. Good boy. So we're trained to do a couple things. I said we try to find humans. And how does Faust do that? Faust uses his nose. Each one of us has our own scent. All of us humans to animals smell a lot alike. So they train him at a very early age to figure out what a human smells like and find that smell. Sita. All of us as we walk, as we leave footprints behind, leave a little bit of odor behind. All of the things that we use every day, our hair care products, deodorants, soaps, toothpaste, all those things create a smell that's very special only to humans. We have any hunters in here? Okay? Hunters know that when you go out in the woods, what are you trying to do? You're trying to mask your odor from the other animals. Why? Because you smell completely different than the woods around you. So as hunters, we try to mask that smell. Faust actually tries to pick up on that smell to locate people. Here. See that? One thing we didn't do, we didn't have Faust say hi. You say hi. So as humans leave odor behind, Faust is trained to pick up on that. We do it two ways. We do it with a big, long tracking line or a leash that hooks to this little thing right here. And that puts Faust way out in front of me. He smells for your footprints, and hopefully he can locate you. There's another way that we do it. You think of a building like this. Or think of your school, where you go to school. If someone broke into the school, and someone wasn't supposed to be there, and they were hiding inside the school, say it's at night, middle of the night, Sita, no one else is around. How long would it take all of us in this room to search every single nook and cranny in the school? Some of your bigger high schools and things like that, Memphis High School down the road, it would take a while for us to do it. Faust can speed that up because he can smell so much better than we can. So we don't always find people in the woods. Sometimes we find them hiding in buildings and things like that. Here, Sita, take a break, buddy. Sometimes it takes Faust a little while to get settled in. Good boy. Now you see that Faust has a uniform on just like I do. And if you look close enough, he's got a badge just like I do. Because Faust is considered a police officer in the state of Michigan. He's protected just like I would be as far as the laws and things like that. He's actually protected more. Good boy. We also put the uniform on him to show people that he's a police dog, that he's just not an average dog. If I didn't have a uniform on as a police officer, it'd be kind of hard to tell that I was a police officer, right? If I was just amongst everyone else. The reason why we wear uniforms is to show people where they can go to find help or where they can go if they need a police officer. It helps them visually to find it. We do the same thing with Faust. Here, oh. Good boy. Good boy. So I've said that Faust tracks people, looks for people, protects me. But Faust's main job in St. Clair County is his nose finding illegal drugs. Now your illegal drugs, here, that Faust can locate, is heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, and marijuana. Those are the 5 things that he can locate. Faust has also been specially trained on finding fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is not necessarily illegal, but sometimes in the wrong hands it can be very, very hurtful. Does anybody have a DARE officer at their school? Okay. So the DARE, the guys that have been through DARE, you know how have they talked to you about good decision making and things like that? They've talked to you about the illegal drugs and things like that? I'm going to take it a little step further. When I was a kid, your age, sitting there looking at the police officer that was talking to me, all I heard was drugs are bad and don't do them. Okay? And they're absolutely right. They're terrible. They're bad. But they didn't really explain it too much. Drugs not only are bad because they hurt your individual body, they hurt the families, they hurt your community, they hurt the state of Michigan and things like that. And the reason, here, easy. Good boy. The reason they do this is there's a lot of things that when a person thinks about using drugs that they don't think about. Everybody here has loved ones, right? Everyone here has friends or family that they love and care about. How would your family feel if you were hurt or God forbid died using drugs. Those people that are left behind would be really upset, wouldn't they? See, your community would be at a loss. All of you here are scouts. You have something to bring to the community. You have your talents. You have what you're learning as far as being a scout to bring to your community, to better your community, right? And if that's not here, well, the community as itself suffers. See, easy. A little excited today. See, there's other things that suffer too. Does anybody know what meth is? Okay, meth's an illegal drug. They make it by putting a whole bunch of chemicals together. Those chemicals, on their own, aren't necessarily harmful. Most of them. But when you add them all together, they create liquids and gases and things that are very, very harmful. Not only for the person using the meth, but the leftover stuff. The leftover stuff, because most drug dealers aren't very good citizens and they don't really care about recycling, what happens to that? It gets dumped. It gets dumped in trash cans. It gets dumped in ditches. Here. So not only does drug use hurt the people, it also hurts the environment. If you buy a house that had a meth lab in it, your house has been exposed to all kinds of chemicals that it shouldn't have been exposed to. It contaminates groundwater. And it generally ruins the neighborhoods and the environments that are around it. Good boy. Good boy. Easy. But what else does it do? You guys growing up. Anybody know what they want to be when they grow up? Doesn't matter what it is. Okay? What do you want to be? An engineer? Good for you. That's a great job. Engineer. How good are you going to be an engineer? If, unfortunately, we'll say somebody wants to be an engineer, but they get arrested prior to becoming an engineer for using some type of illegal drug. Do you realize that sometimes that limits where you can go as far as your employment? Sometimes having a drug conviction on your record will limit the jobs you can get. So maybe you can't be maybe you can't live up to your fullest potential. Maybe you can't make a lot of money. Maybe you can't be as successful as you want to be because you have a drug conviction on your record. So they are bad. They hurt your body. They definitely hurt your community. But you can also do things that will hurt yourself later on in life. Sometimes people that want to get into the military can't get into the military because they've got certain crimes on their record and things like that. And you have to think about that now. Here. You have to think about, you guys are all at the age, if you haven't been asked already, people are going to start pressuring you to use drugs. And you know they're bad, right? Especially the guys that have been to DARE. But you have to think about a little bit ahead of where you're at right now. It might keep you from doing certain sports in school. It might keep you from certain jobs that you have or certain goals and aspirations that you have that you want to get in your life, right? Here. Good boy. On the other end of it, people do use drugs, right? It happens. So when people use drugs and they get involved with law enforcement, meaning we obviously at some point come looking for them, we need certain tools to help find the drugs. Because the last thing I want as a police officer is to go into a house that has drugs, to miss those drugs, and the next person that comes along finds them and somebody gets hurt. We don't know what they are. So how do we do it? Most of our drugs that we're talking about are maybe only that big. Maybe a little, no bigger than maybe a little square of paper. Here. And I want you to think about this building that we're in right now. If I gave you a little square of paper that smelled like drugs and I told you to hide it anywhere that you want in this building, whether it be the ceiling and the floor and the walls, anywhere, I want you to hide it. And then all of the rest of us are going to come in and look for it. How long would it take us to look in every single nook and cranny of this building to find those drugs? Right? Can't leave till you find it. Because we, as good police officers, certainly don't want to leave those drugs behind for someone else to find them that doesn't know what they are or could get hurt by them. So it would take us quite a while. All of us in here working together would take us quite a while, right? Remember what I said about Faust's nose? He's trained on these odors. So it's still going to take Faust a while in this building. He's not going to be able to do it crazy fast, but he can do it a lot faster than all of us because he can smell a lot more, and he's trained for that. That ball in his mouth, every time he finds the odor of drugs, he'll actually sit down. And he'll look at me, and he'll kind of stand here like this looking at me. And he wants his ball, because that's his paycheck. That means he did a good job. All he wants to do is play ball with me. Faust doesn't care about the drugs. He doesn't care about the other people in the room. He doesn't care what's going on. All he knows is he found that smell that he was trained to smell, which means I throw him the ball, which means him and I get to have a little playtime. And that's all he's looking for. Here, Cita. Los. Does anybody want to see how it works? All right, I need one volunteer. How about you? Cita. Cita, come on up here. See this nasty slime soap ball I got in my hand? I can tell you that this ball doesn't speak English, Cita. We're going to hide this ball. This ball doesn't smell like drugs. I don't bring drugs to these events, and I don't bring things that smell like drugs to these events. But I told you that he finds people, right? That ball's been in my pocket all day. I'm still a person. So we're going to hide this ball, and we're going to show you how Faust uses his nose. Now to Faust, this is a big game of hide and seek. Okay? He doesn't care, like I said. He doesn't care about what's going on. He just wants to play hide and seek. When we play hide and seek, we use our eyes. That's how we primarily find people when we play hide and seek. Faust doesn't do that. He uses his nose. So you're actually going to see him. He may go all over this building. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to find the smell of that ball and the person that hit it. Okay? So we're just going to use a ball today, and if you would, do you see that yellow kitty litter box there?
Yes.
Think you can hide that ball when I give it to you? Just put it right behind that box. It doesn't have to be too crazy, okay? So what Faust is going to do is, when I do this, I'm going to take him out of the room because he will cheat with his eyes. I'm going to give him a command. He's going to use his nose and try to find that ball. Now it may take him 2 minutes. It may take him 10 or 15 seconds. I don't know. There's a lot of different people and a lot of odor in here today. We'll see how he does, all right? While we're watching this, it's going to be kind of funny, but keep in mind that's the same thing that we do when we're looking for drugs or we're looking for people. He's trying to smell that smell that he's been trained to smell on. When we get done, I'll tell you how we train him. Okay? Sound good? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this ball. I'm going to go right around the corner in there so he can't see me. Or he can't see you, actually. And like I said, you just hide it behind there and we'll see where it goes. Close. All right, grab her down there so she's not as bad. Come on, ball. Faust. Off. Off. Faust. Everything has a unique smell. He's smelling everything in this room, trying to figure out where that ball went. Good job, buddy. Good boy. That's a boy. Good boy. Good boy. That's it. Good boy. The reason why we do little jobs like this is to keep Faust sharp and to keep him. It's a fun game to a dog. Just like how we like playing sports, we like playing certain games. This is what he lives for. I told you I'd tell you how we train him. We as people, we smell things differently than dogs do. Dogs can actually smell 4 things at once. Off. 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 Good boy. Good. So I want you to think about this room, and I want you to think a table in this room that has a whole bunch of pizzas on it. Nice hot pizzas, okay? Nobody's in this room except all these really hot pizzas, and all they're doing is making the room smell like pizza. All right? Right before your scout meeting, I'm going to pull all those pizzas out of the room. You're going to walk in the door and say what? Smells like pizza in here, right? Because your brain, over time, has taught yourself to know what the smell of pizza is. We did that to Faust, and he was trained to find pizza. And Faust's brain, probably be all in Dutch and I wouldn't understand it anyway, but in Faust's brain, he's not going to smell pizza. He's going to be able to tell you that he smells the pepperoni, the cheese, the sauce, and the crust. So when we train these dogs, at least the way that Faust was trained, we make it a game. Faust is real little, small puppy dog. We roll out a bunch of tennis balls. And what do they smell like? Tennis balls. But dogs like balls that roll, right? They like to play ball. So the dogs will chase after it. When they do and they grab that tennis ball, we make a really big deal of it. I think it's great. Very soon, he gets it in his brain that when that ball rolls, I'm going to go after it. And it makes me happy. After he gets that, then we start changing things up a little bit on Faust. Some of the tennis balls smell like tennis balls. But some of the tennis balls smell like some of the illegal drugs that we want him to find. There's no actual drugs on them. We don't give dogs drugs. They're trained to find the odor of it. So we roll all the tennis balls out, the ones that smell like drugs, the ones that don't. If he goes towards the one that doesn't smell like the drugs, we don't play with him at all. You actually see some of the trainers turn their back on him like this. The dog learns very fast, I didn't get to play, and that's no fun. When they go for the ones that smell like drugs, we go back to playing and having a good time. And you'd be amazed that within a few times of that, the dogs learn which smell is good for them to play and which smell is not. And it's as easy as that as far as training them with the odor. Volume. Oh. Good boy. Good boy. The last thing that we do with Faust is just like you in school, or you as a scout have to be a good listener, we have to train him in obedience. The dog has to listen to me. I'm in charge. It wouldn't be any good here. You wouldn't be able to listen to me or pay attention if my dog was running all through the room crazy and wouldn't listen, right? So he's got to listen. So every single day, as a canine handler, whether I'm working or not, him and I do what we call obedience. And that is, he's connected to this leash. I have his ball. We walk him around a little bit. We make him sit. We make him stand. We make him do different things to listen. If he doesn't listen, he doesn't play. You want to see how that works? Faust. Los. Faust. Volume. Volume. Oh! Bleib. Oh! Bleib. Bleib. Volume. Volume. Good boy. Sita? That's a good Sita. Good boy. Can you speak? Speak. 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 That's better. Speak. Good boy. Good. He has to be able to do all those things on command because we may need him to do... Here. We may need this dog to do some pretty extraordinary things as far as dogs are concerned. Sita. Faust has to be able to jump over things, crawl under things. He can't be scared of the dark. He can't be scared of loud noises. When these dogs get selected, they make sure that the dogs can handle gunfire because sometimes we're going to be around gunfire and the dog can't take off and run. We got to make sure that he's okay with loud noises like sirens in a police car. We have to make sure that they're physically fit and they're able to do their job. But we also have to make sure that they're nice, right? How good of a listener would you be if my dog was in here snarling and barking at everybody and was just plain mean? I probably wouldn't get invited to a lot of these events, right? Probably not a good thing, would it be? Here. See. Cool. So I know I've talked a lot about a lot of things. Is there any questions that anybody has? Yes, sir. He comes home with me. My patrol car outside is specially designed. I don't have a back seat like a normal car would have. I have a dog kennel that's actually built into the car. Faust and I respond from our house, and that's for 2 reasons. For St. Clair County, I'm the only canine for the sheriff's office. So sometimes when things go wrong, they need me to be there fast. If I can respond right from my house with him in the car, it's a heck of a lot easier than me having to drive all the way to the sheriff's office and back, right? The other thing is the bond with the dog. All right? Other human partners, we go home at the end of the day. If you were my partner, you go back to your house, I go back to mine. We don't hang out 24/7. This partnership, we hang out 24/7. He looks to me for everything.
Do you guys have to get up early, especially for maybe a canine?
Yes. So a lot of times what happens is I work a normal shift like everybody else. But when I get done with my shift and I go home, it's usually just about the time I get to bed and he's ready to go to sleep that we get a call that says, hey, something happened, you need to come back out again. And because I'm the only dog, you put your stuff back on and you go back out. All right? Good boy. Any other questions? Parents, anything? Any questions?
So you gotta be prepared anytime. So like
Yep.
24 hours ahead?
So most police officers have to be that way anyway, but as a canine handler, you actually are that even more. My phone, I have to carry a phone with me everywhere that I go, and this dog goes everywhere that I go. So if I want to go down to Florida, the dog comes with me. If I want to go away for the weekend, Faust comes with me. So you have to be a little bit more prepared than even your average police officer just because of the job that you took. Yep, sometimes dogs do that, absolutely. If you'll see this is not exactly a tennis ball, this is a Kong ball because he'll do the same thing, he'll eat the tennis balls up. Yes, ma'am?
When he is on duty, such as yourself, is there ever downtime for him? Does he become when he's at home, is it always work, constantly with you back and forth, or is there ever a downtime?
Nope, there's downtime just like I have. He is at home. We do have to do an obedience session each day, so whether I'm working or not, that still has to happen. But basically, like when my uniform comes off and he's kind of just a regular dog with some restrictions. It's a regular dog in the sense that he gets time to play, he gets time to rest, he gets time for that. But he doesn't get to, say, lay around and kind of hang out at the couch. He doesn't get to enjoy some of the things that maybe your pet dog does for a couple of reasons. He has to have his own area and his own structure for him up here. But it's also for a couple of our reasons. We go in some pretty nasty places. I don't know too many people in here that may have been in some type of drug house, but they're not clean and they're disgusting. So when you take your dog through those drug houses, you don't necessarily want him coming home 20 minutes later and running through your house, spreading all of that around. Sometimes we end up in the woods with ticks and fleas and things like that, and that's not something that we want to necessarily transfer to my home. So he does have his own little area, but as far as our interactions, if I'm home and he's clean, he interacts just like a regular dog. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. If you have a family, how do you separate a dog from a normal dog and having a normal family, and with him being a canine dog?
There's just some considerations. With the family, as far as my children, he's great. No problems. The thing that we have to watch is like if kids bring their friends over and things like that. You might watch that with the normal dog. You really have to watch that with them. Because they are off duty, but they're constantly eyeing everything up. So if they see something they don't like or it's unfamiliar to them, these dogs are trained to investigate that. And whether investigate means barking or investigate means going after or whatever, so you have to have a little bit more considerations with not necessarily the immediate family, but other people that may be coming to the house. The immediate family, the kids can play with them. I think he pretty much figured out his role real fast where he was, and really no issues there. Other dogs, you have to kind of watch them because these dogs are very physical. If you think of these dogs physically are like your star quarterback as far as the way that they're built, the way that they keep themselves up. So you have to watch it with other dogs that maybe aren't so physically fit, because these dogs can not necessarily mean to, but they can accidentally hurt them just because of their size and their strength.
What are the words that you're saying to the dog? Like, what do they mean?
Okay, so sita means sit. Sita. Sita. Off means go to the ground like you just did. It's Dutch, and it's a little bit of German, and it doesn't necessarily translate to each word. It's just it's how they hear it. So sita means sit, but if you look it up, you're not necessarily going to see sita as far as always meaning sit. It's just the way that the dog heard it, and it's the way that he was trained when he came from the Netherlands overseas. Yeah, unfortunately that happens especially with labs.
How long have you had this now?
I've had him, great question. I've had him since November of 2015. Previous to that, I had another dog. My dog Fist, here, Sita. He was my first canine with the sheriff's office, and I had Fist for about 6 years. Fist actually retired in 2016, and he's living at home right now, kind of enjoying his retirement life. Go ahead.
Is Faust along with this?
That's a good question too. No, not at all. It will be an instant dogfight if those two get together. So it takes a lot of juggling on my part. When Fist is out, Faust goes in. When Faust needs to come out, Fist goes in, and I constantly have to do it. They don't get along because they're both trying to be the dominant dog, and they both really, really want my attention. Fist worked with me for 6 years. In his mind, it's only me and it's Fist and I. Faust is the newcomer, kind of like the new younger brother, and he doesn't want to deal with that. Faust, on the other hand, says, hey, I go to work with this guy every single day. He's my partner.
So say if something happened to Faust, would you use Fist?
Fist is actually so old now that he's no longer able to do it body-wise. He's still healthy, but he's just not. This job is very demanding on dogs, and it's very difficult. So if something happened to him, we'd have to get another dog. We couldn't use Fist anymore. Yes, sir.
Will he take commands from somebody else or just you?
He will take commands from someone else if you can match my tone, and it really matters up to him. If I give you the ball, he'll probably do whatever you ask him to do. If you don't have the ball, he's probably not going to pay you any mind. It's really on him, on how he's motivated at that particular moment in time. But I am the only handler in the county. As far as getting him to do the higher end of the things that we need him to do, he would probably only listen to me. The basics, anybody in this room could probably do it.
So if you're in trouble and you let the dog, and the person that's attacking you tells him to sit, he's not going to do
No. In those higher stress situations, that's where the bond comes in, and he's only listening to me. Even other officers, if we were in that same thing and another officer came up to help, he's not going to listen to another officer. The day-to-day things like today, he would be fine listening to somebody else, especially if he had the ball.
How long does the canine stay as a canine?
So usually we get the dogs about 2 years old, and they work about 8 years. At 10, they retire. This is a very hard life on these dogs. This is very, very difficult for the dogs as far as the amount of work we ask them to do. So sometimes they don't last long. My dog Fist actually had both of his knees replaced because he was injured on duty chasing somebody. So Fist has got 2 steel knees. It's a difficult life, but they like to do it.
Do you feed both of your dogs any kind of special food?
Good. Fist gets kind of the old man retirement blend because he's not really doing too much anymore except laying on the couch. Faust has to have a very, very high diet of protein because he's very active. So he's eating actually very expensive food. Here. And just like if you're a good athlete, you got to worry about what you put in your body. Faust is the same way. Here, good boy, leave it. Good boy. So yeah, actually he's got some very, very high protein foods.
Our dog, another dog, she is very, very aggressive. When she jumps up on anybody, she's funny. And she's
Super
super
young. Sometimes that works out as they get a little bit older. Yes, ma'am.
Without revealing too much information, what is the most thrilling event that you have ever attended with?
Let's see. Oh. Not necessarily with Faust, but actually in this location about 3 years ago, there was a guy that took a bunch of drugs and wandered off into the woods back here. And they couldn't find him. And when I had Fist, it's actually probably more than 4 years ago, Fist, along with some Macomb County Sheriff's deputies, we were able to track the guy and find him in the woods right about the time that he really, really honestly needed medical care. It could have been bad for him. So those are the ones I like because, here, oh, certainly like to catch the bad guy. I like to find drugs. Drugs is like a big puzzle because people are very creative in how they hide it. So sometimes people that hide drugs and do drugs think that they get one over on you because we as humans can't find it. And so when he finds something like that, it's gratifying there. But I really like to find the people that need the help the fastest.
Is there a duration that he can't, you guys go around the clock until you have to do what you gotta do? How does that work for him?
It's harder on me. Faust needs anywhere, depending on the call, Faust needs anywhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours to kind of chill out. And after that, he's ready to go right again. This is like having a 3-year-old child, a hyper 3-year-old child that is constantly attached to your hip and they never grow up. So in the 10 years that I'm going to have him, hopefully, he will never get past age 3 as far as his activity level. So it's usually harder on me that when I get home at 1 or 2 in the morning and they say, hey, come back out at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock, it's more difficult for the human. The dogs tend to bounce back really quick. They're so motivated to work that as a handler I have to be careful because they'll actually almost work themselves to death. And as a handler, you have to know when the dog is pushing its limits because he will not obviously tell you, but he will not stop either. So he will push himself right into injury or death or something because all they want to do is please and all they want to do is work. So it's difficult.
I know the canine is really fast, but what was the longest time that it took for the canine?
As far as like if we were on a call,
Yep.
the longest track I've had has been 2.5 miles. And that was,
No, I'm talking about how long did it take to track the criminal?
at that one, it took me 2.5 miles and probably the better part of 2 to 3 hours. So, yeah, it's sometimes, especially where we live in this county, a lot of woods, a lot of areas to hide. Sometimes it takes very long.
What was the most dangerous situation you and him were in?
So Faust and I didn't bring it today, but Faust has a vest just like I'm wearing. Okay, you can't see my vest, but he actually has one that he would wear on the outside to protect himself. And we tend to go into situations. The neat part about K9 is I get to go to all the really kind of crazy calls because I am the extra manpower and everybody wants the dog. So sometimes we put his vest on and we'll go into buildings and get people that don't want to come out, bad guys. Not too much of that recently. Most of recently what we've been doing a lot of drug work and we've been doing a lot of people getting lost and things like that. Danger-wise, I don't really get too many people that want to fight me. It's not because I'm all that. I don't get really too many people that want to run away from me. Again, not because I'm all that. Because they know when you say, Sheriff's Office K9, stop or I'm going to release the dog, don't really want to take that chance. Can't say that I blame them.
With that being said, is there a command to fight?
Yes.
There is, okay.
It's not a command we share in public, but yes, there's a command to fight, there's a command to stop fighting, there's a command to watch people. So I don't necessarily need him to say attack the bad guy, but if I give the command, he's going to watch him, which means his eyes are going to glue to that person, and basically he's going to watch every single move until he either gets the command to attack or stand down. Those aren't commands that we share, like I said, in public, but yeah, they're definitely there. Faust, as good-natured as he is right now, if he hears the command and he has a target, he would go from being this to protecting me, depending on how the situation went.
Is it? I expect would it be good for the attackers, like the bad guy, to like use the secret language kind of thing, just not for the dog because of the language, but it's also good because the person doesn't know what it means.
Right. That's true. A lot of people ask over the years, well, why do you speak German or why do you speak Dutch to them? Is that because you're trying to basically keep the bad guys from knowing? It's not necessarily the case. It's fairly simple. He was raised in the Netherlands. They're Dutch. He knows 16 words. It's a lot easier for me as a human to learn those 16 words than try to get this dog right off the airplane and try to convert all those 16 words that he's just learned through the entire 2 years of his life, up until that point, back to English. Now, as these dogs get older, they start picking up English just like we would if we were anywhere else. So sometimes I can say sit, and he'll sit. Sometimes I can say lay down, he'll lay down. Eventually he gets it. But initially, it's easier for me, the human, to learn 10 to 16 words than it would be for the dog to have to relearn everything. So that's basically the gist behind it. Now the added benefit is, like you said, sometimes the bad guy doesn't always know what we're talking about, and that kind of helps us out in those situations. Here, sit there. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Any other questions? Yeah.
Why not get a dog from here?
Dogs do come from here. My first dog, Fist, he was actually born and raised in Ohio. Two things really generating that right now is Germany, Czechoslovakia, the Netherlands. Those areas over there are really known for very good bloodlines as far as how the dog genetically is made up. He's a purebred shepherd. We don't do that for pedigree. We don't do that to win anything prize-wise. We do that because it ensures that the hips, we're going to get a lot of service out of the hips, because a lot of times the German shepherds have problems with their hips. We do that because it ensures that there's maybe not so many allergies or any genetic defects that the dog might have. That's not to say the dogs bred in the U.S. were not any good, because they're great. The other thing that drives that is the military. With the things we have going on overseas, the military uses quite a bit of dogs. So maybe 20, 30 years ago, it would have been easier for a police department to get a dog. Well, certainly not a challenge, but it's much more difficult now because you have this big group of military units that are buying dogs faster than maybe police departments can come up with the money to get dogs. So they've actually branched out. So a lot of times the dogs in the U.S. are either used up because they're gone somewhere else, or it's just what they prefer. He was born and raised in the Netherlands. He was sent over at 2 years old, and he actually ended up in Pennsylvania at a kennel that trained him to be police dogs. So in our case, the only thing that we did was we bought him overseas. He had maybe the basic obedience on him. People in Pennsylvania are the ones that taught him how to be a police dog. These dogs, it takes a lot of selection. Depending on which study, which article you want to read, out of 30 dogs, maybe 1 to 5 might be selected because they have to meet a whole bunch of criteria. Good boy. Good job, buddy. Good boy. There's a lot more behind it than just a dog on a leash.
Like you said, he would like respond to your tone. Was it harder than you to respond to your tone because the people in Pennsylvania had a different tone?
That's great. Absolutely. If you think about your first day at school. Maybe you knew 1 or 2 people, but you didn't really know everybody there. Maybe you weren't familiar with the building. And it took you a while to get used to the people around you. And eventually you made some friends, right? That's the same thing we did with the dog. So when he met, he had all of his skills, I had all of my skills, and I was over here and he was over here, and it took him a while to trust me, and it took me a while to trust him. So actually, when you get your dog, and you go through this, you kind of do this special police academy with the dog, you leave there and you have all your basic skills, but you don't really have the trust or the bond with the dog yet. And that comes over time. So it takes usually about like 6 months before the dog really trusts you. So in that 6-month time, he'll usually listen to you because you've got the ball, remember? But he's not really going to listen to you fully until he feels like he can completely trust you. So it does take a while. Sometimes we try to match the tone from the trainers just to get us by initially, but eventually he learns. Just like you, there's people in school that you know and you know to stay away from, and there's people in school that you know that you're friends or that you talk to. And it's the same way with him. He has to learn that trust. He has to build that.
Why did you want to choose this as your calling? Why did you choose this as your calling to do a canine?
Well, I'll be honest with you. If you put most canine handlers up here, they're going to tell you from the moment they were born, they wanted to be a canine handler. And all they thought about was dogs and police work and all these grand things. I had none of those plans. I started with the sheriff's office 13 years ago. I started in the jail. I worked there for approximately 4 years or so, and I got out on the road patrol. I always wanted to be a police officer. I came from a police officer to firefighter family. So as far as I was concerned, being a police officer is great, and that's where it was going to end. But I got the opportunity to do the dog thing, and I thought, well, I'm always good with dogs. I've always liked dogs. Why not I give it a try? And so kind of the oddity, because like I said, most of the time they knew this. I didn't know it. I didn't really know what I was getting into. First year or two, it was difficult. But this has been the most rewarding part of my career so far. There's nothing better than being able to work a dog. We're kind of in a league all of our own as far as canine handlers. I've been, because of this dog and the dog before it, I've been afforded many, many opportunities that a similar person on the road patrol with my experience maybe wouldn't have got because of the dog. So I've had a very good career so far with it. Ma'am, do you have a question? Next.
I was just going to ask a question about his hygiene. You referred to going into red houses and how do you take that off? Do you just bathe him? Do you put him in his kennel and then bathe later?
I try to brush, he gets brushed out every day at night when we come home and every day in the morning. That's usually just to get the extra hair, but also the kind of the surface dirt off of them. We can't really bathe them every day because of their skin. It will create some skin problems and things like that. I try to get him a bath every 1 or 2 months, depending on, just based on his skin. Most of the time, if we go on something really, really nasty, there's wipes, there's different things that you can use to kind of gloss over them and not give them maybe a full bath. But if we really got in a bad spot where it's been really disgusting, there's been times when we've left that house and gone right to the sheriff's office and completely washed off. Because there's some times where I come home and I don't even want to bring my uniform in the house. It's so bad. So if that's my standard, then obviously he has to do it too. So that's basically how it works. Teeth-wise, we don't brush his teeth. I know that a lot of the vets get mad at me and they say, well, why don't you brush your dog's teeth? If you've ever taken a toothbrush and tried to put it in a patrol dog's mouth, it doesn't usually work too well for the person holding it. So a lot of times what we do is when we practice our bite work, we've got a bite sleeve. It's made out of jute and that actually cleans the teeth. The ball and rope cleans the teeth a little bit as well. Yes, sir.
How much training do you guys do throughout your other daily training you do daily?
We do our daily maintenance, and then we're mandated by the federal government to do at least 16 hours. That's the bare minimum a month of just purely canine training. So that's not any other police training. 16 is the minimum. We try to do much more than that. So my sheriff has been pretty, very, very good with me as far as letting me train. So we actually train once a week. We get an 8-hour training day with other canines in the area. And we basically go through all of the disciplines in that training time of everything that he does. We start from basic obedience all the way up and ending with bite work, and we work all the way through that. So our different odors, we'll do dog tracks, we'll do things like that all within that 8-hour period to kind of condense it. Then every year we do about a week or two of a national seminar. So we expose ourselves to other canines throughout the area regionally, not just the locals. And that's for me as a handler to kind of get some different ideas and to try to expose the dog to some different things that maybe we don't see on a regional level.
So for like the first 2 years of their life before they're sent over, or so what is like kind of sometimes how do they prepare them or they prepare them or?
Yep, so the breeders, the people that breed the dogs, as soon as these dogs are done with their mother, as soon as they're done weaning off their mother, they start just real basic things. They'll start maybe basic obedience. Depending on the breeder and the size of their operation, they may actually what we call put odor on the dog, meaning they'll teach it to sniff bombs or they'll teach it to sniff drugs or whatever that they're looking for. So very, very early on, up until that 2-year mark is usually all their kind of like their basic training. And then once they're deemed acceptable for a police dog and a department buys them, then we go to an academy. Now that academy, depending on where you go, could be a week, it could be 12 weeks. It really all depends on what your department is set up for. And that's actually like another police academy, but it's all dog related. Okay. About 2? All right. So we got to wrap it up here. I really appreciate you guys. You guys asked some great questions. You were very good listeners. At the end of this, if anybody wants to pet Faust, they can, but I just ask you to remember the 2 rules that we said earlier. We don't want to play with that ball in his mouth. That's his favorite toy in the world, and he does not want to share it with you, trust me. And we want to do it one by one. If you don't want to pet him, or if you're allergic to dogs, or hey, this isn't your thing, you certainly don't have to do it, but anybody that wants to, parents, anybody that wants a picture or anything with them, we can do that too as long as time allows. Okay? Anybody that want to pet him, if you want to pet him, why don't we line up over here, and we'll kind of do it one by one, all right? Faust. See it.